My boss stood up in front of 40 people during our quarterly meeting and said my name out loud, then told the entire room that I was replaceable. He said it like a joke. Nobody laughed. I sat there frozen while my face burned, and I remember thinking, fine, you want replaceable, I will give you exactly what replaceable looks like. What he did not know was that I had spent 3 years quietly holding together every broken process in that office, and none of it was written down anywhere except in my head. He was about to find out what happens when the glue walks away. My name is Danielle, I was 31 years old, and I worked as the operations coordinator for a mid-sized logistics company in Ohio called Faro Distribution. My boss, Craig, was the regional director, the kind of man who wore a blazer to a warehouse and thought that made him important. Craig loved two things, taking credit and public humiliation. He had done both to me more times than I could count, but that meeting was the moment something inside me went cold and calm instead of angry. After the meeting, people came up to me one by one, whispering that Craig was out of line, that everyone knew I ran half the department. I nodded and thanked them, but inside I was already building a plan. See, 3 months earlier, corporate had rolled out a new company-wide policy called Documented Duty Compliance, or DDC for short. The idea was simple. Every employee had to strictly follow their written job description, nothing more, nothing less, and any task outside that description required written manager approval before it could be done. Corporate wanted this because of liability issues after a warehouse accident the year before. Craig had actually pushed hard for this policy himself, bragging in a leadership call that it would finally hold people accountable and stop employees from, in his words, doing whatever they feel like. The irony was almost too perfect. My actual written job description covered scheduling and basic inventory logs. Nothing else. Meanwhile, for 3 years, I had been quietly doing Craig's vendor negotiations, his budget reports, his safety audits, his shift conflict resolutions, and covering for 2 absent supervisors who never got replaced. None of that was in my job description. I did it because I cared about the team, and because Craig always promised a promotion was coming, next quarter, next year, always next. So the next morning, I did something very simple. I followed the rules. I printed out my actual job description, highlighted every single line, and taped it to my monitor. Then I stopped doing anything that was not on that paper. When the vendor from Millbrook Freight called asking about the shipment delay reports I normally sent, I told him sweetly that scheduling those reports was outside my documented duties, and he would need to speak with Craig directly. When the warehouse supervisor asked me to resolve a shift conflict between 2 forklift drivers, I smiled and said I would need written manager approval first, per company policy. When Craig's monthly budget report was due to corporate, I left it exactly where it always sat, untouched, because writing financial reports was never listed under my title. Craig did not notice for exactly 4 days. He was too busy walking around telling people how smooth things felt now that the new policy was in place, saying things like, "See, this is what real structure looks like." He believed the quiet was a sign of success. He had no idea every task he assumed was happening automatically was simply not happening, sitting untouched in a folder, waiting for someone with proper written authorization. Nobody had that authorization anywhere. Nobody was ever coming for it. On the 5th day, everything collided at once. Corporate called Craig directly asking where his budget report was, 3 days late. At the same time, 2 forklift drivers nearly got into a physical fight in the warehouse because their shift conflict had never been resolved, and one of them filed a formal complaint with HR. And Millbrook Freight, furious about the missed communication on their delayed shipment, threatened to pull their contract entirely, a contract worth almost $200,000 a year. Craig stormed into my office, red-faced, demanding to know why none of this had been handled. I looked up at him calmly and said, "I am so sorry, Craig, but per the new documented duty compliance policy, none of those tasks are listed in my job description, and I did not want to violate company policy, especially since you were the one who told corporate leadership how important that policy was." He opened his mouth, then closed it. He knew exactly what I was doing, and he knew he could not say a single word against it, because he himself was the one who had championed that policy in front of every regional director in the company. He tried anyway. He said, "Danielle, you know what I meant, you are supposed to use common sense." And I said, with total sincerity, "I would love to help with all of that, Craig, I just need it in writing, since that is exactly what the policy requires, and I know how strongly you feel about people following policy exactly." He stood there speechless, because there was nothing he could say. Overriding the very policy he had pushed for would make him look incompetent to corporate. Not overriding it meant the department was falling apart in real time, publicly, loudly, and expensively. That same week, the HR complaint about the forklift drivers escalated because it turned out one of the drivers had actually been injured slightly during the near fight, just a strained wrist, but enough to require an incident report. HR pulled records and discovered that shift conflict resolution had never officially been assigned to anyone in writing since the last supervisor left 8 months earlier. Craig had been quietly relying on me to handle it off the books the entire time, which meant, officially, on paper, nobody was responsible, and now there was a workplace safety incident with no clear accountability trail. Corporate does not like that kind of thing. Corporate hates that kind of thing. 2 weeks after the meeting where Craig called me replaceable, I got called into a meeting myself, except this one was with regional corporate leadership, a woman named Patricia from HR compliance, and Craig sitting there looking like he had not slept in days. Patricia asked me to walk through exactly what my job description covered and what tasks I had been asked to perform outside of it. I answered every question honestly, calmly, and with paper trails to back up every single word, emails, timestamps, the whole highlighted job description still taped to my monitor. Patricia turned to Craig and asked why an employee had been performing budget reporting, vendor negotiation, and conflict resolution duties for years without any formal title change, salary adjustment, or written authorization. Craig tried to explain that it was just how things worked, informally, and Patricia said informally is exactly the liability problem this policy was created to eliminate, the same policy you presented to leadership as your own initiative 6 months ago. I watched Craig's face go pale in real time. Within 3 weeks, corporate restructured the regional office. Craig was placed on a performance improvement plan for failing to properly document and delegate departmental responsibilities, the exact violation of the exact policy he had built his entire leadership pitch around. 6 weeks after that, he was quietly moved to a smaller regional office 2 states away, a lateral move that everyone in the building understood was really a demotion dressed up in nicer language. And me. Patricia offered me a new position, officially created, called Senior Operations Manager, with a job description that finally matched everything I had actually been doing for 3 years, plus a salary that came with an actual number attached to my name instead of vague promises about next quarter. On my last day working under Craig, before his transfer, he passed me in the hallway and did not say anything, just gave a small nod, the kind of nod that meant he understood exactly what had happened and knew there was nothing left to say about it. I never raised my voice once through any of it. I never filed a single complaint against him. I never even mentioned that meeting where he called me replaceable in front of 40 people. I did not need to. I just followed the rules, his rules, the ones he wrote himself and bragged about in front of every leader in the company, and I followed them perfectly, to the letter, every single time, until the entire department could not function without me standing right where I had always stood. Replaceable, he had called me. Turns out the only thing that got replaced that quarter was him. Sometimes the quiet ones holding everything together are the ones who know exactly how it all falls apart the moment they stop. Craig learned that lesson in front of the same leaders he once tried to impress. I did not have to say a word. I just followed his own rules perfectly, and let the silence say the rest.